Off top, eels can live up to 85 years. They don't develop sexual organs or have sex until the final year of their life. Play the music.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.
Welcome to the Domonique Foxworth Show. We are joined by the great Bill Barnwell, who seems like he does not approve of the off top, even though we are presented by Allstate, which you do approve of. Throw your hands up. Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate. What's wrong, Bill?
Why is it always got to be nasty? Why can't it just be a nice
nasty?
off top?
What's nasty about that? It's beautiful. They just live their life without concern of all these other foolish things. They're enjoying their lives. Then they die later. You want me to do a Bo Jackson off top so Charlie can talk about feet?
I am really struggling not to say something inappropriate on this sponsored show, so I think we should talk. I think we should talk about football.
Good job. All right, let's talk about football. I mean, we'll get to Patrick Mahomes at some point, but I think the right game to start with is Bills Lions. One of two big matchups. We had Eagles, Steelers also. We'll get to that, but Bills Lions, biggest matchup. Josh Allen was amazing because Josh Allen is always amazing, and I think we probably do not want to spend much time patting ourselves on the back, but this is kind of exactly what we expected. A big shootout, right? Right, Bill? What? You don't want to pat yourself on the back?
Haven't you spent the last 2 months pronouncing the Lions to be like the best team in football and the team that's going to win the Super Bowl?
Oh, no, you missed a couple weeks.
Now you want to pat yourself on the back?
You missed a couple weeks. You missed a couple weeks. I switched to the Eagles a couple weeks ago. Just in time.
Also, Bill, on Thursday, I was lambasted for asking the question, if the Bills force 3 punts, can they win? They forced 3 punts.
I'll say this. This might be a surprising takeaway from this game, but I left this game feeling a little better about the Lions than I thought I would, because I think we talk about the Lions, and I think the one thing we expected of the Lions is they would have a hard time when they're in a must-throw situation. And I felt like through the course of this game, they started out down 2 touchdowns, and they were in must-throw situation. And we saw some stuff from Jared Goff that we don't routinely see. We saw it at times last year in the playoffs, but we saw him stepping up in the pocket, drawing the defenders up, and using that to create plays that were unscripted, big plays. So I will say Jared Goff garnered some MVP chants. Maybe that's a little bit over the top from the home fans, but he played really well in a situation that I think we all said, look out.
Yeah.
Don't get Jared Goff down by a couple touchdowns because you'll see the ugly version of him.
Bill, I know you have many thoughts here, but I need to interject for 1 second.
Please.
The Bills scored 48 points in this game.
Yeah.
And the contrarian take that Domonique started the show with, is Josh Allen looked like an alien dropped down on Earth throwing chest pass touchdowns that he walked off like Steph Curry.
How sick
the takeaway from this game was, we should be encouraged by the Lions because Jared Goff did not poop his pants down 2 touchdowns with 5 injured defenders and not being able to. Here's a pat on the back.
Okay. Apologies.
Yeah, because he got MVP chance in the first quarter
at
before
home.
The dude on the other side of the field showed everybody in the entire stadium how foolish they were to even joke about the idea of Jared Goff being the MVP.
I think they pissed him off, and they should have pissed him off because that one damn throw where he also got the roughing the passer 15 yards tacked on. He's rolling to the right. Josh Allen, that is not Jared Goff, who I very foolishly, we make mistakes. Sometimes you get beat for a touchdown. It just so happened on the first play of this show, I got beat for a touchdown. I bid on the play action of Jared Goff being good under pressure, when in actuality, the story of this game was not Jared Goff. That is, maybe later in the show, we'll talk about Jared Goff. You're right. I'm sorry. Josh Allen was incredible. Start to finish, they pissed him off by doing MVP chants of Jared Goff, and he went nuts. And they attacked the hell out of the man coverage. Like we talked about this leading into this game. It's the weakness of the Lions. They blitz a lot because they don't have healthy pass rushers, and they're going to play a lot of man coverage, and that's by design. Aaron Glenn wants to play a lot of man coverage, but they don't have enough healthy cornerbacks and linebackers that are good in man coverage. And to give Josh Allen a bunch of credit, they deserve it, but also Brady designed some impressive plays that were designed specifically to get at them linebackers, and they got off to a great start. It was a really impressive execution by the Bills offense early in the game. You're nodding, so we approve now? Did I bounce back?
You
Did I bounce back?
Huge bounce back.
Yeah. What you talked about getting those linebackers in hell? I was with you. We were on the same page there. That is in the notes. Oh my God, I would not want to be a Lions linebacker for that game for 60 minutes. The Lions all year, like you said, Domonique, have been basically trying to survive post Aiden Hutchinson injury, post Marcus Davenport injury, by upping their blitz rate and playing man at the highest rate of any team in football. And for weeks, it's worked. We've been sitting here like waiting for this ball to drop, waiting for this moment where the Lions are missing 6 starters and finally look like it on defense. And both on paper and in reality, this was the matchup where it made sense things would fall apart, because the Lions, of course, when you play man coverage, you're opening yourself up to scrambles. And Josh Allen is a freak when it comes to scrambling for big plays. And you saw, even before they even got going in this game, the Lions were terrified of what Josh Allen was going to do, because they didn't blitz a lot early in this game. His first 11 dropbacks, they blitzed twice and multiple times in that first quarter of this game. You saw Josh Allen was scrambling. He had 6, 7, 8 seconds to get rid of the football, and he eventually found a running back or a tight end for a big play, because those were the guys matched up against the linebackers, because there was not any pressure, no rush getting home, nobody spying Josh Allen. They were just going to drop back into coverage and hope that they held up long enough for Josh Allen to do something stupid, or for the pass rush to eventually get home. And it wasn't. And Josh Allen picked that apart. And once you get that going, the Lions really had no choice but to blitz, and Josh Allen picked that apart as well.
According to Next Gen Stats, they attacked the linebackers 5, 7, 10, 11 times. 1 incomplete pass. That is not a good recipe right there, and gave up 1 touchdown. It seemed obvious that that was the game plan going in, which also felt kind of unnecessary, because they also could attack on those crosses to Shakir. Like, they didn't have to scheme up and go after the linebackers. They were picking up the pressure. And then, to your point, the one thing you don't want to do with Josh Allen, or with a running quarterback in general, is turn your back to him. Even if you have a spy, Josh Allen is that guy who's going to make you pay. So they did all the things that they've been doing all season. And I think that's why, like I mentioned, I had switched my allegiance in NFC to the Eagles. And that was the talking point, was the Eagles can play in multiple different ways on defense, and the Lions just can't. Even when they're healthy, they like to play this kind of high risk, put it all on the table. And sometimes on the other side will flip the table if he's Josh Allen.
Can I give you my 3 favorite moments from this game for the Buffalo Bills on offense?
Okay.
Number 1, the one that didn't count. You got the chest pass. That was sick. Incredible.
Can we take a second? I guess Please. Josh Allen has so many highlights. And so, first of all, Josh Allen has the spirit of a defensive back. Like, in that there are so many times where it feels like he does the unnecessary just because of he's dope. And that was a specific moment where Josh Allen was like, I could throw this with my right arm, but nah, I'm a chest pass it and turn my back and head to the sideline. It was cool with the finger up. It reminded me of when Lamar Jackson decided to shoot a jump shot for a touchdown in that Thursday night game. It was so damn cool, and I was so pissed off that they called a holding on that. But I guess Josh has enough highlights that he doesn't care.
Number 2, we got that play where he scrambled forever to the sideline, and I think he hit Keon Coleman for like 50 yards on an inch-perfect throw. But number 3, not going to get a lot of attention.
No, I need a minute.
You got something to say about number 2? Okay, go ahead.
Inch perfect. That's the perfect description, because the accuracy, the arm strength, I'm not surprised by that. Being able to take a hit that was incredibly hard, I'm not surprised by that. But to do all that, and Keon Coleman, the ball caught him.
Well, you should be impressed by the arm strength on it too, because that's the fastest 50 yards throw that Next Gen Stats has ever recorded.
Oh gosh. Wow. Okay. I think we're ready. We can go to number 3 now.
Okay, number 3, they had a rushing touchdown in the first half of this game. I think it was, did Allen score? I forget whether it was Allen scoring or one of the running backs scoring, but they pulled a tackle, and the tackle had nobody to block. And you could just see him all sad because he was waiting to hit somebody, and the Bills were just walking in anyway, and there was no one for him to hit. It was like, even when you climb the mountain, there's still not been anything to do when you get there. I just felt so bad.
I remember that play. It was Deion Dawkins pulled around to the right, and it wasn't that it was no one there to block. It's that they both turned their backs and ran. to cover a screen, I think.
Yeah.
And so maybe you don't see the screen in the picture, but the photo is of guys who decided to turn their back and run away from the enormous Deion Dawkins. It was a very cool play. And Josh Allen jumped into the end zone. Again, very cornerbacky of him is that everything is going to be with flair. I love him. It's so fun to watch him play football.
Should we talk about the Lions part of this? Because there are a couple things I do think are interesting. And I'm not doing this. The Lions are...
I got something.
Go ahead.
Jared Goff played really good, even though he was down 2 touchdowns.
Well, I do want to talk about the game script part of it because your point's interesting. This is a team that has had the best running game or one of the best running games in the NFL for a lot of the season. The last 2 weeks, less so. And last week we wrote it off as they were getting chunk plays through the air with Jared Goff. This week it actually felt more like a defect than a choice. That even when they went down 14, they were not getting the chunk plays on the ground that they wanted. Is this team, for a great team, a team that we still think could make or win the Super Bowl, more game script dependent than we realized?
I guess I don't know what you mean by that because they still found success.
Okay.
So like I would understand if they struggled or if they had to run a bunch of trick plays. It feels like sometimes we see teams that throw trick plays in because we know they're outmatched. This team runs trick plays because they think it's fun.
Yeah.
and yeah, their offense was working just fine. And like I mentioned, what I saw from Jared Goff was some impressive stuff. Like he had long runs. It's the type of stuff that we talk about for the great quarterbacks and we say that it's a limiting factor on this team because Jared Goff can't do that routinely. And maybe he can't do it routinely, but he did it there.
He had 494 yards and 5 touchdowns in this.
Yeah, nuts. It's nuts. And it wasn't like, it wasn't garbage time and it wasn't like play action exclusive. Right. I mean, some of it was towards the end of the game, but they were competitive at the end of the game.
I just asked because I assume they want to play the game through beating the crap out of their opponents running the ball.
Like I don't want to treat it like a binary thing because it's not a binary thing. It's a spectrum of, okay, what are we best at? What's our best scenario? Where do we struggle most often? I think they're going to struggle more often being in those situations, even though they can throw the football, even though if they have to be one-dimensional, yes, they can make it work. But of course they want to play in neutral scripts. Of course they want to play from ahead because that is going to be the strength of their team. That's going to be what they do really well, where they can really sort of inflict damage on the other team in the big picture. And my concern now is that, okay, you think, okay, Josh Allen's leaving. We don't have to see that guy again until hopefully February. We're good. But the Lions lost 2 more key defenders in this game for the rest of the season, according to Dan Campbell. Aleem McNeil, who was their best remaining defensive lineman, and Carlton Davis, who had been probably their best cornerback all season. So now you're down 2 more starters to that team. So now I'm even more concerned. Okay, your man coverage, the thing you've relied upon, you can't do that without, even with an even worse pass rush now, without another starting cornerback. Maybe you're getting into more shootouts now. Maybe you're having to live in that we're throwing and playing from behind all game scenario more often than you would have before heading into this one.
Yeah, they've had 14 injuries on their defensive depth chart since the start of the season. Jesus. It's really tough.
Yeah, I just decided to, when you were talking about it, just look at on the offensive side of the ball, if you take out play action pass, they're still the 10th best offense passing the ball. So, like, they're a good passing team even without the play action. So it's impressive to see that. But your point, Bill, that you're making is the scariest one, and it's the reason why they need to be good at passing, whether they're in play action or not, is because there is no answer to a defense that is this injured. Like, they have to be coming close to some sort of record because it's not even that the starters are hurt. It's the backups are being hurt. They're bringing guys in and asking them to play big roles who were not at training camp. And it's only so much you can ask. When they weren't at training camp, not because they were busy.
They weren't on a darkness retreat?
They were not on a darkness retreat. It was not a choice. They weren't there because people don't think they're good enough. And so, or they're limited in some way. So you're now no longer dealing with the types of players that you want. And the scheme is not super flexible. So I think Aaron Glenn deserves some credit for holding things together, but they didn't really hold much together in this particular game. They got no stops.
So are you officially, I have to listen to the show the past couple weeks. I need to know, are you officially out for good on the Lions this season? Are you strictly an Eagles guy now?
Hell
You're
no.
not opening the door for the Lions again.
No.
You're willing to open the door for the Lions.
I mean, when we have the conversation about the NFC or the AFC, frankly, is there's nobody pulls away in the way that I think we've gotten accustomed to. Like last year, the Ravens felt like they pulled away from everybody at a certain point in the season. And even though they lost, it still felt clear like, oh, yeah, they're the best team in football. But right now, it doesn't seem like there's anybody who's pulling away and is the best team in football because the Eagles, they won today. But their limitations are the ones that we said about Jared Goff. Their limitations are offensive. And it's not injuries, though, so you think you can overcome it. But the Lions' limitations are with their defense, and there's no answer for it. So can the Lions win these games? And they barely beat the Packers a week ago. So there's so many teams over there, and the Bucs are putting up 40 points in their win. Like there's so many teams that you could see getting a win in these games that it doesn't feel like I can give up on any.
You didn't mention the Vikings.
Oh,
the sicko 11-2 team. I kind of want to be a weirdo and be a Vikings guy and just live on Darnold Island.
You can't because you love to mock the sympathizers more than anybody.
That's right.
So you can't be on Sicko Island with the Vikes.
The thing might be just my brain being slightly broken about how it works because you're explaining all the ways it can still work for the Lions. So obviously they're an incredibly good football team, could easily make the Super Bowl, but it feels like a weird formula that they want to be a run first team that now doesn't have a good defense.
Yeah, those things do normally tend to go together as we think about teams that want to run the ball and milk the clock and play good defense. But they're also an explosive play team.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, it's not a 4 yards in a cloud of dust type of offense.
Yeah, they get a lot of pop.
They're not getting 3 yards of pop. So I'm not sure that their game script is decide. Like, I think the Eagles are that.
Yeah.
But the Eagles want to drown you. They want to slow the game down and drown you and play good defense and beat you up. I think the Lions would be happy if they could run the ball to set up the big plays and screen. They just want to score. They're not, which they might need to adjust that considering how fragile their defense is.
Okay, but let's just say this is a postseason. This is a Super Bowl where we have teams who are flawed, who are limited, and it comes down to a who can get 40 each and every week scenario in each round of the postseason into the Super Bowl. Bills are going to be a team that you put a lot of stock in. Would the Lions not really be that far behind? I feel like they're just as likely to put up 40 in any given week as any other team in football.
They certainly seem like it, and I think Montgomery went out for a little bit, but that's one place where they don't have the same injury bug problem as they have guys healthy and guys playing well over there. Dan Skipper, their new best tight end / tackle, catching touchdown passes. Charlie believes that he has the best hands on the team.
I think in practice he's making, like, in the warm-up, like there's the stretching lines, everyone's out there. You see everyone throwing a football, not just the quarterbacks. Dan Skipper has to be doing some crazy stuff when they're warming up because they've wanted to throw him the ball so many times.
I'm glad he finally got it. It was shocking that it was his first career touchdown because it feels like every week they design something for him. I think
he's getting more targets than Trey McBride near the goal line and not scoring.
Oh, no one gets more targets than Trey McBride.
Somewhere Marvin Harrison Jr. is just shaking his fist at that reference.
One of the most important factors every year, and I think particularly this year, in the playoffs is who's going to get that first round bye, especially when it feels like all these teams are beatable and close to each other. And it seems like right now the Lions have the lead, the tiebreaker, which would give them the first round bye over the Eagles. But the coming games, the Eagles have the Commanders, the Cowboys, and the Giants, which should be 3 wins, and the Lions have the Bears, the 49ers, and the Vikings, which those are losable games. They lose one game and the Eagles sweep, then you drop out, you're on the road.
How about not just that? If they lose to the Vikings, they could drop to the 5 seed.
They could lose their division.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's the crazy thing. Like, what a night. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be that big of a nightmare. You play the Bucs in the first round of the playoffs and they'd be fine. But, like, you go from having a bye and you're trying to just win 2 games to make the Super Bowl.
But the Buccaneers beat the Lions earlier this year in Detroit.
Good point.
So we go back to the original. What a nightmare that would be for a team that is, I think, by most advanced statistics, are the best team in football or have been all year. So that would be that'd be awful for them. But it would change my opinion on how realistic I thought their Super Bowl chances were if they had to go on the road and they didn't get that single first round bye.
You guys have any thoughts about the Dan Campbell onside kick in the fourth quarter?
I didn't have a problem.
10 minutes ago?
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with. So the early fourth quarter or the early onside kicks,
one,
where I didn't have a problem with it because they haven't stopped anybody. And my assumption was like, look, I did not assume that Mac Hollins would take it for a touchdown. So my assumption is you'll get it at midfield. They'll be there in no time anyway, considering how you've been playing all day. So I didn't hate it, honestly. And when Mac Hollins, you tackled him in the red zone, it's like, all right, maybe you can hold him to a field goal. The way their defense was playing, onside kicking as much as the rules allow.
It was an amazing play by Mac Hollins, too. The one hand tap to himself.
You're laughing, bro. You disagree with it. You think that they should have kicked it deep?
No. There's no good scenario for what the Lions could do in the fourth quarter.
Right.
Like, you're down multiple scores. You are not stopping them no matter what you do. Like, there should be, this is why we should have if you can convert 4th and 25 from your own 20-yard line, that should be the onside kick as opposed to the current onside kick rule. But we're not in that world yet, so there's not really any good solution.
There's no good solution for a defense that can't get a stop. You're right about that. Again, I'm sorry for the positive Lions spin, and I know you're going to laugh at me for saying that they kept fighting, but it's commendable the way that they continue to play when we all thought the game was over multiple times. They fought back in the game. Like, that's all the cliche nonsense that Dan Campbell says after the games, or not Dan Campbell, that all coaches say after the game. It's real in Detroit, and that makes you want to believe in a team like that keeps fighting back till the end, and even when it is improbable, that second onside kick, we were really close to them having a couple seconds to get a Hail Mary up or something.
I think that's got to be the grittiest kicker in the league at this point. He threw his body into Teron Johnson trying to recover that onside kick, and he was a brick salesman last year.
I've never been more sure that it's time to go to the next game than when we're talking about kickers' grit. So you want to get to the Eagles,
and brick salesman.
Guys, it's time for our check-in presented by Allstate.
Throw your hands up.
Whew.
Let's check in on the relationship between Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. This was much talked about, much discussed, that their problems extended beyond the field. Last week, Brandon Graham brought that up. They went out there and got an early touchdown. Jalen Hurts, it was clearly a priority to have him throw the ball this week and sort of dominate through the air. They beat a Steelers team that people were starting to wonder if they were in the upper echelon of the AFC. And so I ask you guys, did the Eagles and the resurgent A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts connection, despite the almost ankle sprain from A.J. Brown late in the game, quell your concerns about their offense?
I mean, it was nice to see. They did a little Fresh Prince dance after their first touchdown. I think Devontae Smith also wasn't happy with the offense, and he got over 100. So it was kind of surprising that they would attack this defense in a way that felt like they were trying to prove a point and they were trying to mend some feelings against a very good defense. That's encouraging for how good the Eagles are, but it hasn't eliminated any concerns that I have about Jalen Hurts in a must-throw situation because they were never in that situation. The Steelers' offense did nothing all game. At no point did I feel like we were asking Jalen Hurts to attack a team that needed him to throw, or we asking him to do sophisticated passing concepts. So, no, I think he came back from one 1st and 20. So it's impressive to pass your way out of that. But they still didn't see the high-level challenge that you want to see Jalen Hurts excel in.
Yeah, and what's to say this is not what the Steelers wanted them to do? I mean, obviously, the Steelers wanted to win the game, but they held the running game and Saquon Barkley to 3.1 yards per carry. And to me, that's a very defensible way to try and stop this Eagles team, is to say, okay, maybe in years past it would have been, let's try to stop Jalen Hurts in the passing attack and we'll try to shut down the run game. Right now, it feels like the thing to do is shut down Saquon Barkley, load up the box, slow down the run game, and then take our chances that Jalen Hurts is going to throw us the football a couple times. And he did not throw an interception, but he did lose a fumble as a scrambler in this game. So, I mean, it's a step in the right direction. I think saying, okay, we're not completely broken and the passing attack is fine, and, beating a good Steelers defense for 27 points is a positive, obviously, but this is one game. We've seen them have great games before, especially after A.J. Brown complains about stuff, but can they sustain that for 2, 3, 4 games into the postseason? That's the part that I'm still skeptical of.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did. If you're going into a game against the Eagles, the Steelers got the type of game that they will want. Jalen Hurts trying to win through the air and having success doing so, I think is surprising. But, I mean, we'll never find out unless there's a team that can also execute against that defense, which is, I don't know, we talk a bunch about like individual units, but when your team is built the way that their team is, and they do complement each other well, and their offense and defense being a really good rushing offense and incredibly versatile defense, it does seem hard to imagine a scenario where the game gets too far away from them that you're going to get put in a spot where Jalen Hurts has to just eat from the pocket. And they're capable. The thing is, they're probably capable of running the ball against most teams. I'm having a hard time thinking of someone in the AFC that is going to be both good enough offensively and good enough on defense to stop the run, to put them in the NFC, to put them in a situation where they're going to have Jalen Hurts in the pocket down a couple scores and they have to come back.
Lions, maybe.
Yeah, well, let's peck. Let's do some.
Yeah, but that's the thing is the Lions' defense. I have little concern about them being able to move the ball on the Lions' defense.
Well, let's talk some NFC pecking order with that, just for because we have the Lions, we have the Eagles. We assume that's like the top tier of it. Right now, the Packers are up 17-3 on the Seahawks as we're currently taping this. We're seeing, second half of the season, Jordan Love as or second half of the game against the Lions continue.
We're seeing Toyotathon Jordan Love.
9 for 10 currently, 9 for 10, 108 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Love. Oh, he's back. We got the Packers and the Vikings, and those are conceivably the four teams that we think are really good in the NFC. So if you're saying that the Eagles, you don't think there's any of those teams that could put them in a position where they're going to be really uncomfortable in the NFC playoffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think there could be turnovers and stuff that could make them, I guess because their defense is so good and so versatile and they don't blow coverages and make mistakes, I have a hard time imagining a situation where people are just like what we just saw from the Lions last night and what we just saw from the Bills. Like, I have a hard time imagining a team just scoring at will. It is the NFL, though, and all the rules are biased against the defense, so maybe it could happen, and then we're in trouble.
I think the Lions can because they can run the ball. And I think the fact that they can easily take, okay, you're going to run a light box against us. We have the best offensive line in football. Right. Every one of our dudes can block, wants to block. We're going to run you over. They can play that game and take the Eagles offense off the field and beat them that way and control the clock and score a bunch of points that way. I think they can do that. But, I mean, the Eagles, what they did in this game is they really kind of beat the Steelers at their own game. Like the Steelers, yes, got a couple of early fumble recoveries from Hurts and from Cooper DeJean on a punt return, and it kind of felt like it was going to be another Steelers game. But they got a Najee Harris fumble around the red zone. They didn't give up they gave up one play over 17 yards all game. They gave up 131-yard completion, and that was it. Not a single run over 8 or 9 yards all game. So if you're forcing Russ to go like down the field, drive after drive after drive, possession after possession after possession, series after series after series, just making positive plays, the Steelers are not good enough, not disciplined enough to do that. And there are a lot of teams in the NFL who will struggle to be that disciplined. The Chiefs are struggling to be that disciplined right now on offense. So I think if they're executing this defense the way Vic Fangio wants them to, and they have enough of a pass rush, and if they get you in 3rd and long, you're in serious trouble. Yeah. That's a really hard defense to beat.
I absolutely think that the Lions are capable of doing that. But then you go to the other side of the ball. I think that's my point is like I have no concern about the Eagles offense going up against this version of the Lions defense where they play a ton of man coverage with injured corners and linebackers that just showed up, like, and McNeil not healthy and on the interior. Like, I have a hard time imagining that they're going to be able to slow the Eagles. So that's the Eagles feel like the most well-rounded team. So that's why I have a hard time imagining anybody, not that they can't be beaten, but anybody forcing them to play a way that they're not comfortable playing.
So say they're playing the Packers and Jordan Love gets hot and they go down 2 scores early in that game. Yeah. You still feel confident in the Eagles down 2 scores where Jalen Hurts has to throw the ball.
Not nearly as confident as I would if they weren't down 2 scores. But I think that's where the problem is. I have a hard time imagining the way that they play offense is like there aren't that many possessions in the games that they play because
the Steelers had 2 possessions in the second half because of the Eagles.
They run the ball so well, and there aren't that many possessions in the game. So you're going to have to be really efficient. You can't be kicking field goals. If you're trying to get them down early, you're going to get a few chances in the first half to score, and you have to also stop them from scoring while you're not turning the ball over. Like, it's a really hard thing to do, which is why I get why they run offense the way that they do and why it will be frustrating, but they're like, all right, we're just going to do this methodical thing until you guys make mistakes.
You know, Domonique, I really respect you, and I respect that you waited until the Lions were down like 9 starters on defense before you moved to the Eagles. And now that they're down 11 starters on defense, you look even smarter. I really respect that about you.
Thank you. I'm glad that you respect me.
Can we talk the Steelers part of this? Did we just see them like sort of bump into their ceiling where this team is so well coached? Their defense has been very good. Now TJ Watt is injured. We saw the Russell Wilson game where they didn't get a win rate of 14.9 QBR like they did earlier this season.
I mean, they do the design check down thing, which is kind of frustrating. I think the Bills do it also, but they combine it with Josh Allen throwing deep passes. But they do these design check downs when Pickens isn't out there and they don't attack down the field. I feel like you could make an argument for Pickens as the most valuable player on their team because it changes how teams respect them and how explosive their offense is, even though it's not incredibly explosive when he's out there, but it does change the dynamic. And without having him out there or the threat, I guess Mike Williams was out there not doing anything. Without that threat, it feels like this offense, the ceiling is really low, and they've gotten Russell Wilson to play in a more measured way because they need him to, but you're going to have to just cut him loose because there's no other hope, I think, for them to score points. Then if they're not going to have TJ Watt causing sack fumbles or something, they're going to have to cut him loose and let Russ cook and hope that he can turn the clock back one time.
His forced fumble today was ridiculous for the record.
Punch out.
Yeah.
There's a real, I'm going to cross the street and not deal with that guy energy. That comes with the Steelers with George Pickens in the lineup. That's not there when George Pickens is not there. I would just say that they have such a small margin for error against really good football teams. Like, yes, if they play the way they play against bad teams, against good teams, yes, they can win because they are going to win the turnover battle. They are going to pick up stuff on special teams. They're going to win field position. They're going to hit a few big plays. Like, that is a very successful formula for them. But as we approach the postseason, all the conversations we have all year, every year in recent years about Tomlin magic, how well coached they are, how dominant they are, how smart they are, how they don't beat themselves, has led to them getting blown out every single time they make it to the postseason. Right. Is it not the case? I forget whether this is true. Isn't their last playoff win Alex Smith's last game in a Chiefs uniform?
I think you're right. I do believe that was their last playoff
So
win.
They've gone the entire Mahomes era without winning or even coming close to really winning a playoff game. So, I mean, that's like, I'm happy to believe Mike Tomlin is a great coach. I'm happy to believe all this stuff matters. But leaving aside that he won earlier in his career with a better version of this football team, can that only really carry them so far when they play really good teams in meaningful games who are not the Baltimore Ravens?
I think their record is better than their team actually is.
Yeah.
And that's always the case, or it feels like in recent history it's always been the case, which then sets them up to have some expectations. But they've been sneaking in the playoffs lately. This year, it feels like they're not going to be sneaking in. They're going to win. They're in position to win the division.
Right.
And they're going to be expected to win. And with the limitations on this offense, I don't see how they're. I mean, I guess they could. Obviously, they could, but I wouldn't want to bank on them with this version of Russ and no TJ Watt to create punch outs.
So you don't have any concerns they're going to collapse down the stretch? They have the Ravens, Chiefs, and Bengals the final 3 weeks of the year. So you think they're locked in as the division champs?
I don't think they're locked in, but I mean, I think they'll beat the Chiefs and the Bengals. I think they'll split with the Ravens.
I think the Bengals are better than them.
I mean,
it might not matter though.
Yeah, I don't think it'll matter at that point. I don't think the Bengals are fun, but I can't trust them. They're not trustworthy.
This has annoyed an undercurrent of this entire season as I continue to believe in the Bengals and Dominique's face.
I'm not annoyed by it. I just don't get it. You just want. I mean, I like you would love to see.
It's
Burrow.
Jamar Chase rules.
Yeah.
Every time he touches the ball, it's awesome.
I got more frustrated with my son than I have been in a long time because I was trying to get him to appreciate. He's a Ravens fan. I was trying to get him to appreciate how good Jamar Chase was, and he refused to. I was like, he took a 20-yard dig, 80 yards. What are you talking about? He's not that good. It was infuriating.
I love Declan for this.
This is the most ridiculous thing ever. Then after the Ravens won,
he's no Rashad Bateman.
after the Ravens won, he was like, "Yeah, he's pretty good. Pretty good.
He's
what are you talking about?"
Speaking of pretty good, but maybe not that good. The Chiefs finally won a game convincingly. But in that game, Patrick Mahomes went down with a high ankle sprain and is now considered week to week. Their offensive line was in shambles to begin with. Mahomes was pressured on 54% of his dropbacks today, which is the highest pressure rate he's faced since 2020. Can this offense tread water with Mahomes if he has this ankle injury? If he's not 100%, if he's not able to make magic to carry them in high leverage moments?
Convincingly, they won based on the score.
Mm-hmm.
It still wasn't impressively, which maybe I'm just a Chiefs hater, but in watching that game, it was like, hey, Browns, how many ways can you turn this ball over? Like, it didn't feel like the Chiefs were just dominating this game.
I love that we have former NFL cornerback Domonique Foxworth being like, oh, defenses have no control over forcing turnovers. That's just Browns. How are you going to turn the ball over? Nothing to do with the Chiefs did on defense?
Nope. It was special teams turnovers. It was also some Jameis action. There was some pretty bad turnovers. So, yeah, Chiefs defense created turnovers. Awesome job, Chiefs defense. It still remains that the worst version of Patrick Mahomes is the one that we're seeing this year, which is still very good in important moments. However, I was looking at quarterback contacts, and when he went down, he's fourth in the league for times quarterbacks have been contacted, and it's like behind Lamar Jackson and Jalen Hurts and Jaden Daniels. Like, he's not like, and then Caleb Williams is right after them. His contacts that he is receiving is not like design runs. So like, he's getting hit because the offensive line or the tackle, now they put Tooney out there, which compromises other parts of the offensive line. Like, it's not good enough. And Travis Kelce, their best weapon, is limping around the field. Like, we've been saying it all year long. It does not look like a team that is that we expect from Kansas City.
When you said quarterback contacts, I was hoping you had like Patrick Mahomes' phone book from his phone, that maybe he knew some offensive linemen they could call to try and get to show up in the full tier. Because it feels like for 2 months now, we've been sitting here saying, okay, once this guy shows up or that guy comes back, it's going to be fixed. Once they get Isaiah Pacheco back, the running game is going to be fixed. Well, they average like 3 yards a carry with Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt splitting time in this game. He has not looked phenomenal since he returned to the lineup. They're getting DJ Humphries. Once DJ Humphries is at left tackle, that fixes their biggest problem. They're going to be fine. Humphries wasn't that great, and he got hurt, which happens when you miss the entire season and then show up with like 2 weeks' notice and play left tackle for an entire game. And now, Wanya Morris came back in and he was so bad they took him out by the end of this game. And like you said, moved Joe Tooney to tackle. And now it's, they'll get Hollywood Brown back. And if I know anything about Hollywood Brown, I think he's a super underrated player. But man, that dude finds ways to get injured in any possible scenario. So I've been waiting all year for something to fix the Chiefs. And it doesn't feel like anything changes. If anything, it gets worse as the year goes along. Mahomes is getting hit more now than he was earlier in the year. The offense looks more stagnant, less explosive, less productive than it did earlier this year. And we've seen Mahomes win with injuries before. He had the turf toe in years past. He still got to the Super Bowl, I believe. Got to the AFC Championship game. But he had a high ankle sprain when they went to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago and won. And that was a limited team with a terrible receiving core, but there was still enough around Mahomes that it felt like they could cover for him. Right. It doesn't feel like that's the case with this version of Mahomes.
Yeah, and I think the defense dwindling some is a major concern also. And they showed up well against the Browns today, but I don't think that the Browns are an offense that is on par with the offenses that they're going to have to stop in the playoffs. So that's the biggest concern. Like, I don't think anyone worries about how good, even with the injuries, how good Patrick Mahomes can be, but he's going to need some help to get to those major situations or those big time important situations. And that's the concerning part. And you're going to need to be able to block the left tackle spot. Like, that's going to have to, like,
yes.
It's,
they can't run the ball well. They don't hit explosive plays. Mahomes is injured and the offensive line sucks.
They're going to need a bunch of
But
turnovers.
they are still going to win the Super Bowl, to be clear. I want to have that on the record as well. Do not get it twisted. I'm saying they're not about to win the Super Bowl.
I'm not scared. They're not going to win the Super Bowl.
Can we peck
I've said it a number of times. I'll continue to say it.
Can we peck again? Can we do the AFC pecking order? Because if I say to you right now that the Bills are definitively the best team in the AFC, even though the Chiefs are 13-1, even though Lamar Jackson might be like the best football player on planet Earth, even though a million other things, you say what?
I mean, the word definitively, I can't go definitively.
Yeah.
No, this
Maybe definitively.
no.
We just saw the Bills give up like 55 points to the
Yeah.
Rams a week ago.
And,
I think you were talking about today.
yeah, yeah, but the Rams.
500 yards to Jared Goff an hour ago.
We saw the Bills give up like 55 points to the Rams, who then got shut down by a modest weather system on Thursday night.
It was more than modest. It's a tier 2 quarterback in Matt Stafford there who got shut down by that weather system.
Oh, I forgot Charlie's tears. Yeah. It's really impossible, I think, to do AFC tiers because every team that I want to put at the top, I know a team that I think would beat them. And yeah, I mean, the Bills, I guess, have had a pretty good streak right now, and they're coming off of, well, except they just lost to the Rams, like you mentioned, in a terrible defensive outing with some coaching mismanagement at the end of the game. Like, we can't put that team at the top, right? Like, that's...
You're saying 9 people on the field for the final punt of the game is a problem, Dominique?
Yeah, that and the quarterback sneak, it's also a problem.
So do you think it's like rock, paper, scissors where the Bills would beat the Chiefs, the Ravens would beat the Bills, and the Chiefs would beat the Ravens? If that's what happened in like an AFC championship game?
Yeah, it's about the draw, I guess. You give it the advantage to whoever has the bye.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you can't slip on the banana peel if you're not running.
Yeah.
So if you have to run 3 times in the AFC side of the bracket, you have a worse shot than the teams who have to run twice. You will not run into that terrible game. You're less likely to run into that terrible game. So I really feel like it is first round bye goes through. And the Chiefs are still the favorites to get that first round bye, even if it might involve Carson Wentz.
Oh my God.
Winning.
No way.
Winning.
No way.
Can you guys have spent the entire year seeing every single Sam Darnold believer come out from the woodwork after years of being hidden and just afraid and ashamed to show their face, and now they can reveal, oh, I believed in Sam Darnold.
Just say his
all along.
name. Say his name.
Just wait until we get Carson Wentz.
Just say his name.
He would never. You're talking Orlovsky?
Yeah.
Orlovsky wouldn't. He wouldn't. No, he's
No,
done.
I mean, I'm not even saying Dan. I'm saying lots of people. There were plenty of people who thought Carson Wentz was a top 10 quarterback.
Oh, well, at one point he was.
5
When he
years
was like
ago.
when he was in his second year and he almost won the MVP.
For 1 year he was.
Yeah.
For 1 year he
And
was.
then he
And that
shredded
was the
his
only
knee
year.
and was not as athletic and was kind of sucked. Yeah.
They went
And then all of his teammates hated him and he got traded to a bunch of different places and he
They won the Super Bowl without him.
Yeah.
So it's real hard to be like, hey, that guy was really great when they won it with Nick Foles. But yeah, I think you're joking, right? There's no way. Like, if Patrick Mahomes happens to have some sort of injury that limits him to the point where he can't play in the playoffs, everyone comes around to the Chiefs being done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, of course. But I'm saying if Carson Wentz plays next week.
Yeah, that's a more
And
interesting.
Carson Wentz plays long enough for them to win the 1 seed in the AFC. He finishes those final 2 weeks. He's the closer for the Kansas City Chiefs. Would that not be?
Well, here's an interesting question on this: are you extra cautious with Mahomes knowing he's your only shot, or do you try and make sure you secure the 1 seed and play him as much as possible down the stretch?
You haven't been cautious with Mahomes all year. You've had a turnstile at left tackle all year. Why would you start trying to take care of him now?
I mean, I think I'd play for, obviously it depends on how severe the injury was, but like I'd play for that 1 seed, get that first round bye. I mean, they have Texans and the Steelers. That's the Christmas Day game. And then they have the Broncos, which like,
It's not easy down the
these
stretch.
are all losable games
Except for
with
the
or
Texans
without
one.
Patrick's. Oh yeah, I know you.
I didn't even mention the Texans in that top tier. Come on, they disgust me.
Very, very, very fraudulent football team.
Yeah, they beat the Dolphins today. Give them a little bit of love.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, another 4-yard out from Tua hits the ground softly. Congratulations, Texans.
You're so hateful. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting scenario though. If they're forced to put Carson Wentz out there, it would be interesting. If they lose the number 1 overall seed, then I think it's They're definitely cooked. But I can't wait to be on the montage. I look forward to this. It's something I wear like a badge after they win the Super Bowl. I would like to be in the postseason documentary when they say nobody believed in us. They can say Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate didn't believe in us. Throw your hands up. This has been the Domonique Foxworth Show presented by Allstate. Thank you so much, Bill Barnwell, for joining us. Thank you to Charlie Kravitz, all the great producers. I love you, Paul. We out.
This is the Domonique Foxworth Show.